Welcome to Colonize the Ocean podcast, where we discuss oceanic colonization, exploration, and education with your hosts, Adam Jewell and Brendon Traxler.
Welcome once again, everybody, to the Colonize the Ocean podcast. My name is Adam Jewell, and with me, as always, is Brendon Traxler. Brendon, how are you doing today?
I finally got a haircut after like 3 months, and it feels good. It's a little bit more than regular, but I don't even care at this point in time.
You know what? It looks good on you, buddy.
Oh, yeah.
For those that are tuning in on the visual version, it looks just wonderful.
And this is
for those that are just doing audio,
turn in on the visual is to check
there
this
you go.
out.
That's incentive. Be like, if you want to see Brendon with a haircut, come watch the YouTube version or the LBRY version of this podcast. So, Brendon, we got some stuff to talk about this week. We kind of hinted around. That we're probably gonna do one more episode after this, and then maybe take a small break, do kind of a season thing. Are we on par with that? Is that kind of what we were thinking?
Give us a little bit of time to, as much as we enjoy doing the news thing, if we want to add a little more value. I know that this is episode 21, what we're doing right now.
Yes.
So yeah, now we got a couple under the belt here.
Yeah, so we're gonna do kind of this is season 1, and we're gonna bring that to a close here in a couple weeks. And then, but yeah, one thing we talked about is we definitely want to try to get more interviews on here. So, I have some time, that I'm going to be trying to utilize that to get a hold of a few people, some people that are experts in this field of what we do. So, that's how we're going to be spending our time and bring some more variation, some more variety to the Colonize the Ocean podcast. So, news-wise and subject-wise, what do you got for us this week, Brendon? I told you that you were going to go first because I wanted to close this week.
And you concern me, is all I got to say with you're going to talk about. But whatever. Hey, so we're going to talk about Deepflight. The only reason I want to talk about detail is they're near and dear to my heart. It's a company that I have followed. I think we've even addressed it on an earlier podcast or on a video or something like that. But yeah, since the 90s, I've been following Deepflight and what they've been doing, and Graham Hawks, who is the founder of it. And basically they're a personal submarine, but it's more of a luxury personal submarine. They're not cheap. They're like $1 million plus. But they're basically, it's the idea of Graham Hawks took the idea of the airplanes, and he said that's what he wanted to have underwater for the most part. And so initially, earlier on, a couple decades ago, the plan was to be able to use one of these to go to the deepest point of the ocean. Never have done that yet. That's what they're designed and the specifications for it. But they have several different designs out there. A 2-seater version. They've got a 3-seater version. They've got a version that's almost like a drone where it's got 4 blades that are, so you can just hover in place and stuff like those lines too. The videos are super cool. But yeah, it's just, basically there's a Wikipedia article I think Adam posted this week on it. And just, hey, here's who they are. We'll post obviously some videos from YouTube and the website and stuff along those lines. Check them out. If you got $1 million you want to drop on one of them, they'll gladly sell them to you. It's just really cool. I like their designs. I like their business model. I just think they're really sexy and cool.
Yeah, but backtracking, if you got $1 million, why don't you look our way first, real quick? We definitely appreciate it. Even if you got $20, we'll gladly accept.
I'll take 5.
Yeah, anything that we can get right now. No, but yeah, it's cool because we did do an episode. One of the very first episodes that we did was, I believe, just on submersible, I guess, vehicles or however you want to describe that. And yeah, Deepflight is kind of one of the biggest in the business, and it kind of goes back to one of those things where, for us, it's important to look at these companies because once we start being able to have underwater housing, underwater hotels, whatever it is, we need to have a vehicle. Not that we need to right away, but I mean, we have vehicles on land to get from point A to point B, so why not have a submersible type vehicle to get from point A to point B there? If you want to go visit your buddy who lives on a different coral reef area type thing, now you have your own little submarine type vehicle to get you there. So it's really cool to watch these companies and all the different designs they come out with, and just the more development they make in it. Because yeah, we look at it from the aspect of being able to see how we could utilize it, but for people that maybe aren't looking at this kind of area of, I don't know, exploration, it's used for, like you said, the other stuff where, you know, the idea is maybe someday you can take one of these cool vehicles to the deepest points of the ocean, or just be able to, for an average Joe, to go explore an area that might not have been explored before. So yeah, it's just kind of cool to see the updates and the progress that companies like Deepflight or Deepflight themselves are making.
Yeah, I know that Graham Hawks is. I don't think he's actually still. I don't think he's still with the company. He may be, but I know he started another company too that's really, once again, trying to do cutting edge stuff with underwater engineering and stuff like those lines too. The one thing about Deepflight is, you know, they have partnered with quite a few different yacht companies and stuff on those lines to be, you know, bigger yachts. Some of them will have like little personal submarines with them. And I know that Richard Branson, he owns one for his island. That I think it was one of the Wikipedia articles I think he posted was about that one there on Branson's Island as well. Nectar, I think it's Nectar Island, or Necker Island. I can't remember. We'll post it in the show notes though.
Right.
But the thing is that, you know, you look at Triton subs or the other ones like that. They're even though they provide personal submarines, they're much more on the scientific front, and they're designed for that versus Deepflight. And there's a couple others out there as well, but Deepflight has definitely been around, probably one of the longer ones, and has cemented themselves as being that personal submarine experience. The only thing I wish is that it could go a whole lot faster. I want the sports car. I want to be able to zip it through the water, you know. But it'll come. But yeah, as far as what you're talking about, right? Cut you off real quick about the you know, obviously, yeah, the idea is to, you know, partner with one of these companies or something down the road where you've got your sports vehicle underwater to go from point A to point B on a Sunday drive or whatever like that, you know. But yeah.
And that was, I think, something that we kind of discussed in that earlier episode of one of the challenges that these guys are facing is speed, because it's so tricky to be able to make something go super fast underwater. Like even like torpedoes out of submarines or whatever, like they don't have the most incredible speed, and even like that's probably about the fastest underwater object you're going to get, and that's at a military grade level, to where we might not be able to get some of their secrets or whatever, you know what I mean? Like,
well, unless you start going to supercavitation, and at that point in time you're getting up there, you're flying at that sucker, because then you can be zipping through the water at hundreds up to thousands of miles an hour under the water. So,
but then you might hit a whale.
Not for very long, you wouldn't.
So you probably wouldn't want something that fast, but I mean, it's the same as driving a car. You don't want to. Whales are going to be the equivalent of deer on land, where it's just like you're just going to be cruising along and one just swims out in front of you, and it's like, oh, great, I just hit a whale. Nothing to that. Yeah. So yeah, that is one of the things where it still has progress to be made, and I keep referring back to that episode we did, but one of the things, you know, as it becomes a more, I guess, popular idea or more attractive hobby for a lot of people, the prices for those things are going to slowly go down, because once there's a demand for people that isn't just for the wealthy, once there's a demand that, you know, hey, I want to be able to do that too, but maybe instead of buying a speedboat that I put on the lake, maybe I want something like that. Companies are going to try to find a way to make it more affordable for everybody to be able to go out and have one of these. So same with any kind of business, once the demand's there, they're going to keep trying to find ways to make it an affordable option. So, you know, I can't wait to see what, companies like these are going to provide for us.
Yeah, I think we reported too. I mean, there's already some companies that are doing that. Are trying to make a hybrid between the boat and submarine. There's a list of them actually that they're already venturing into that area to try to appeal to that audience. So yeah, and once again, it's like anything else where once you start, it's supply and demand, but the technology keeps on advancing too. Like you're talking about cruising around running to the whale. Well, sonar is just going to have to improve, or some sort of navigation is just going to have to improve as they get faster and faster underwater and stuff along those lines too. So it'll come out of necessity more than anything.
Right.
If
So
that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. This would be a good segue for what I was going to talk about. Is there anything else you wanted to add with?
No, because I'm curious about what you're going to talk about here.
So I told Brendon beforehand that I wanted to talk about a subject that I'm familiar with in my background in manufacturing called lean manufacturing. So, and the reason I want to get into that, and I've hinted at it before in our podcast before. Actually, when we interviewed Chad from Ocean Builders, I offered to provide my services and go down there and help them build their pods for seasteading. But so one of my backgrounds in manufacturing is called lean manufacturing, and what that essentially means is being able to make a manufacturing process as lean as possible, making it faster, making it more efficient, making it safer for like workers and stuff like that, cutting costs, cutting waste, cutting everything out of the process. And the whole reason I wanted to bring that up, and like I've been thinking about it this past week, is so when it comes to when we get to building Atlantis Sea Colony, when we get to building our first prototypes, when we get to building we have customers that want these, that we have to start producing them, we have to start manufacturing stuff like this. Like a lot of products aren't always made by like autonomous machines and stuff. Like cars are typically they have like assembly lines with a lot of robots, a lot of machines that build it. Yeah, there is some hands-on processes, but it's very minimal. But things like what we're talking about is going to be very hands-on because it's brand new. And I work in steel manufacturing. What we do, and not to give away too much of what I do just for conflict of interest, but we don't have a lot of robots and machinery that put together the kind of products we make. So everything is done by hand. But how we make that cost effective and make it, faster is doing what we call lean manufacturing. So when you take a process, whether it's welding, assembling, whether it's painting, whatever it is, you go through that process, you time out what you got going on. You take inventory of what kind of supplies you use, and you kind of just tie a cost to that. So you have like a baseline. So say, let's just put a number behind our first pod or whatever you want to say, and we'll just put an even number of $1 million. That's not what we want it to be, but let's just throw an even number at that. So we know that that's how much money we have to put into it and blah, blah, blah to get a cost. Well, when we start going back through our processes of building it, we know like, okay, this is how long it took to do this part, or this is how long it took to build our walls or whatever. This is how long it took to paint it. This is how long it took to assemble windows and all that. Well, then you start breaking down those processes and you start basically kind of micromanage the process to where it's like, okay, how do we install a window even faster than what we did? You take a look at just like your workspace, you take a look at what kind of supplies you're using, and you can go from, you might be able to save yourself 5 minutes of your process. You might save yourself an hour. The kind of work I've done in my facility and my job, I've done these kinds of studies that has saved hours, which when you tie it into how many units you're building, it saves thousands of dollars across the year. And that's just in my line of work. So, and the whole reason I bring that up, and the whole reason like Brendon's obviously hearing this for the first time too, so is because one of the things that people think about when they think about, oh, you guys are going to have an underwater hotel, you're going to have an underwater house, is, oh, that's going to be expensive. Well, maybe like the very first time we do it, sure. But like one of the things that I want to bring to the project is constantly cutting that down, because it's not going to be long-lasting business if you can't make it affordable. You know what I mean? So just like anything that's out there, you need to be able to make it fast, you need to make it safe, you need to make it have high quality. So that's kind of, I guess, in a nutshell what I'm talking about. So I guess I want to bring that up because that kind of answers a question that we sometimes get of like, oh, that's going to be super expensive. And it's like, well, we're going to tie this philosophy to it that we're going to constantly be improving it to drive the cost down to make it affordable and then still for us to have a successful business. Brendon, questions?
No,
you're sitting there with some skepticism.
No. Just because I know. I mean, what you're saying, isn't new. I guess per se. I mean, it's it sounds like common sense to you and me and stuff along those lines, but it's all about efficiencies. And as a big chunk of I think what you're saying here too, you have to be efficient in what you're doing. As at the same time, you have to look at, hey, am I spending too much time here? Can I cut time here? All these type of things. Obviously, we don't want. It's something with this. You don't want to cut any corners, but at the same time, you can always look at ways of it. In one of my previous jobs, I wrote processes there, and the point of the processes was efficiency. Everybody was on the same track. You're doing the same cookie cutter, I guess is the best way of saying. You do everything cookie cutter, so it's the same way every time. So there is no question about what happens, and that way it cuts down on mistakes happening, and whether that's people doing something or something getting built.
Right.
So yeah, with what you're saying is definitely. I think that stuff like that is more important than people realize because that's where your profits come from a lot of times too. Because it also makes a difference of being able to sell something for $50 or $5. Same thing, same quality. It's huge. And it's super important and becomes more and more important, especially when you start getting competition or anything involved with it as well.
Yeah, and the whole thing kind of started, I guess the quick book version is it kind of stemmed from Japan, like shortly after World War II, where basically they were working from the rubble because they had to rebuild their economy. So they tried to figure out different ways of getting their manufacturing back up and running. And it kind of ties in, heavily ties in with Toyota. They were like one of the first ones to kind of pioneer it, where they came up with this, they call it Toyota production systems, or Toyota production manufacturing, sorry. But yeah, they were kind of the pioneers in doing this, and it kind of stemmed from there. Henry Ford, he was very close to with the whole assembly line thing. Basically, if he would have lived longer, he would have caught on to this. But at the same time, I mean, there was competition, and so some of the processes weren't shared at the time. But yeah, that's why, especially with something like this, maybe someday in the future, there might be robots and machines that could just build this super quick, and there won't be many hands-on thing. But what I foresee, and I guess maybe speaking on your behalf, Brent, I foresee that there's going to be a lot of hands-on this thing. It's going to be hand-built. It's going to be, have a lot of, I guess, manual labor involved in it. Yeah, there will be tools and stuff. Obviously, we're not going to just use hand screwdrivers and stuff like that. But so that's where you got to be able to, like you said, find ways of saving money without cutting quality away. And I mean, I feel like I'm at work by saying this, but safety comes into mind too, not just for the product, but for the people building it too. I mean, that's one of the things that we always looked at is making sure that when you had a process of building something, that it was safe for the employee to be doing, or the person that's building it, because I've seen some ridiculous things where people should have lost fingers or limbs because of the way they were doing, certain processes and how they were building something. But yeah, I've always I fell in love with it when I was trained in on it, because I just like to be able to see that whole hey, it took me 5 hours to build this product and I figured out how to build it in 4, and I think I know how to build it in 3.5 or whatever. And when you think of that hour and a half, tied into however many products you're building or making, or whenever you tie that dollar per hour cost with it, it's really cool and rewarding to see that. So that's what I'm excited about when we get, rolling with this, is being able to like really figure out how we can, still have a successful business, but make it affordable for, anybody.
Yeah, and I think to your point there too, even if say you could 3D print the whole sucker, and that was the way, which maybe that is the way you end up doing it.
Right.
But still, you're going to have that quality control, which is going to be a hands-on thing, which is super important, and that's going to be, that's really where, everything gets checked out multiple times to make sure that hey, nobody's going to be drowning today.
Yeah, and to comment with that, there is machines out there that we use, like brake presses and lasers and stuff where I work for like the metal and stuff. And even that, you can still find ways to improve, like just how do you load it and unload it, at a much more efficient and safer way of doing it. Same thing, like you said, with 3D printing, like how do you keep that machine running, at its optimum pace, because there's always that, setup and changeover and all that you got to put into these. So yeah, anything that you do in manufacturing, this can be tied into, and it can be even tied into a lot of like other businesses. I always think of like one of the easiest ways to think about it is like, think of like McDonald's or Burger King or something, like fast food, how quick they're making your food for you, because they have all these processes of like getting it from the time that you are at the window to when you drive 30 feet around the corner, you have your food.
Yeah.
But when you think about making yourself a burger and fries at your house, it's going to take you a lot longer than that. So, I mean, it's kind of silly when you put it that way, but they're the ones, I mean, they figured it out. They figured out how to be super efficient at doing it.
I will say, I hope the quality of your hamburger at home is better than what you're getting from McDonald's, however, because if not, yeah. And our quality,
I make a good burger at my house.
We're not going to be the McDonald's of underwater hotels or habitats.
No.
Is not what I'm saying. Yeah.
We're going to be the
Chick-fil-A.
Yeah, I've never tried Chick-fil-A, so like we don't have them up here, so I can't verify that. I guess I don't have a good one that I can compare it to, that because you're not a fast food guy other than Chick-fil-A.
Yeah.
Now, should we do a podcast just about fast food? Because I feel like we could do a episode about that.
We should have a poll. What fast food chain do you want in your first underwater hotel?
Yeah. What would you compare? What quality? I can't even form the question right.
Also, it's kind of off subject here. I am not this pale. I don't know what's going on with my lighting here, but I mean, I'm pale, but not this bad. So I'm not sure. I don't know if it's natural.
I think it's all about how you have your light, because if I tilt my light like this, I can be pale too.
My window's open. I think we usually shoot at night, and we're doing it during the day. I think it's natural lighting coming in.
Yeah. Blame the natural lighting. Yeah. You need to see some more natural lighting. Okay, well, that's all I had. I guess.
I think that's really good.
I sprung that on you.
And I think this is a good segue into season 2, because season 2, the focus of season 2 is going to be more value. We'll still have news episodes, but we're wanting to really dive more into Atlantis Sea Colony and underwater habitats in general, I think.
Right.
So it really focus on that. Unless we're hearing back from people and they want to hear something else. Obviously this is an avenue for us to talk about all things underwater, especially Colonize the Ocean, or on the water with sea setting and stuff along those lines too. But it's really dictated on what you listeners want to hear as well. We will, as long as it's in that wheelhouse, we'll make an episode on it.
We're pretty fluid. Like, we're willing to, whatever the people want to hear and what they want to talk about, we'll talk about. So, with that, Brendon, you got anything else to tie in?
Nope.
Okay, so, as always, guys, you can find us at www.colonizetheocean.com, or you can go to atlantisseacolony.com, and we'll have links there to all of our social medias. That's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, Reddit. We got YouTube, LBRY. I feel like I'm forgetting one now that I just ran through all those, but probably
there's
not.
TikTok, Minds, there's,
yes.
Ones.
Yeah, that's a couple that I never hit anymore. Yeah. So yeah, but we got the links there. So all you social media, I guess, groupies, whatever, to hit us up on those.
Wow.
And also, if you're feeling generous, we talked earlier about if you have $5 to give us. we have our Patreon, www.patreon.com/Atlantis Sea Colony. We have a video that we're gonna be making for that pretty soon. Some that'll be a little bit more in detail and give some more descriptions, but really with the Patreon, that's gonna help out not only with it could help with the podcast, but mainly it's going to help with the Atlantis Sea Colony project, helping us start generating some income other than Brendon's bank account. So we're going to start that way. We can get this thing on the road, and I can show you guys how the lean manufacturing works and how we can get you your own underwater pod for $29.99.
Just 20,000 easy payments.
Easy payments of $29.99. No. But thank you guys again for tuning in. And I believe we will have one more episode before we take a small break. And that'll be next week. So thank you guys again for tuning in to Colonize the Ocean.